Welcome back, friends. I hope you all had a wonderful break. I definitely did. I was down in Arizona visiting some friends along with my wife, and we did a lot of hiking, we did a lot of biking, and generally speaking, enjoying the 80-degree weather that we were in down there. It was a little bit of a shock to the system to come back this weekend, but I'm back, and I'm glad I'm back, and I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad that we all had good breaks, and that we're all safe and back here, and digging back into My Brother Sam is Dead. Today's title of the post, which I think I've used before during Walk Two Moons, but it's been a theme of the year, so I'm not worried about using it again, is changes. See, I'm starting to reward the people who actually come by performing for them a little bit, because usually you have to pay to see me perform, just by buying tickets to the shows that I'm in or whatever. Although, some would argue that you can see me perform every day at the front of this classroom. At any rate, what we've been talking about a lot is not just, and what was the focus of any discussion that you guys brought up or that I brought up, is this notion that war is changing the country and changing the politics, but maybe most importantly, it's changing the people. And what chapters 10, 11, and 12, section 4, which we finished today in all but one class, which means that section 4, your assignments are all due for section 4 tomorrow in class, again, except for period 3. But and you can look down there to see what they all actually are down below the video, as always. But I thought, since you guys brought up a whole bunch and I brought up a whole bunch, we had some really good discussions about this as we continued our active reading, after, a real quick review. The people in this book, and especially in this section, because section 4, between chapters 10, 11, and 12, it spans over 2 years. Which means that in your journal, when you've become this character, you are really taking on this particular character, you're really seeing how people evolve over time, and your section 4 journal entry should probably reflect a whole lot of time and a whole lot of change in thought, because as we were really looking at how the structure of this book is playing out, we are really seeing how there are a lot of subplots underneath the main plot of this story. And really, this conflict plot cycle that we go through, that we've talked about in the past, character, plot, conflict, theme, are 4 biggies, where who we are influences what we do, and what we do influences the type of conflicts we get into, and that will change how we have to operate. But those changes that we make are due to who we are as a person. Eventually, we go round and around the circle, and the resolution of certain conflicts, whether they're good or bad resolutions, always change us as people. And you're seeing that in all of the characters. You've been talking about it, and we've been exploring it as a class through discussion and through some of the activities that you've been doing in your unit packet. And I do want to touch on some of these because it's very interesting. Tim has been forced to grow up through all of these events. We found out today that Father died in a prison ship, and Father's changes that he experienced over the course of the last 6 months of his life, forgiving his family or his son Sam, and really making sure that everybody knew that he loved them, and this. I mean, we didn't see that from Father. He wasn't really good at showing love, at least not in the traditional way that we're used to thinking of showing love, and yet he wanted to make sure that they knew just how he felt and how much hope he had for his family, even though he was gone. And it's interesting that it took, being imprisoned for him to really believe in his sons, maybe fully trust in them that they could get stuff done. And we talked about what the final 6 months of your life on a prison ship in a war that you didn't participate in, that was supposedly waged for freedom, it seemed to have made him pretty bitter towards the world and towards the war, even though it made him more warm and hopeful towards his family. And we talked about the conflict that exists there. We also talked about how Tim has really embraced this man of the house thing, and has really been the person in charge of the last 2 years of running a tavern and running the store. And sure, Mom was probably more able to keep up with all of the stuff at first, but he's really taken on the role of father, and he's taken on a lot of the viewpoints of father, where he hates the war, and he thinks both sides are wrong and that the war should just end. Well, he didn't think that before. He was looking up to Sam, and he said, maybe I should fight too. I don't know what side, but I'm going to fight. And now he's sort of become this man of the house, and it's forced him into thinking in a very different way, and that sort of made him more like father. And Sam, even when he returns, starts asking questions of Tim, and starts speaking to Tim in a way that indicates that Sam is now almost looking up to Tim as the man of the house as well, which is interesting because he used to consider himself above and kind of the idol of the family, and he's not anymore. And that's very interesting. And Sam has discovered that this war is not glorious, and Betsy is changing mightily, saying things like, Sam is wrong, Sam needs to come home, I can't believe he still thinks they're going to win, they're not going to win, this is ridiculous, my dad, my grandfather, all staunch patriots and officers in the rebel army, they don't believe in the cause anymore. And they're saying this should just end, that no, they can't win, nothing is getting accomplished like we thought it was going to get accomplished. And we've seen Mother now break down into tears because she's so worried she's going to lose more from this horrible war, because troops are stealing and neighbors are starving and freezing, and nobody can really sustain a life that a lot of people would view as worth living. And so the whole sentiment of the war about what is freedom and what constitutes us having a better life as a result of this war, it doesn't really seem like anybody on any side is enjoying it. And that war has really painted this picture of freedom being something entirely different than we thought it was when we first decided to fight for our freedom. And so a lot of our discussions have revolved around that and specific instances that related to that. But I just thought I'd summarize it all here in this video, because you're going to be writing those Section 4 journal entries today and for homework tonight. And so I would incorporate all of these changes, and maybe even breaking up the 4th entry into a lot of little entries that span the entire 2 years, and what life has been like for all of these people who were involved in the very now active, some of them not by choice, but this very active war that's going on right in front of them now, as opposed to before when they could kind of say, oh yeah, there's a war going on, but it's not really affecting us. Stuff to think about, wonderful thoughts coming out of you guys, and can I say I'm so proud of the way, I would say 99.9% of the time in class today, you guys were just right back into it, right back into the flow, and that's something we talked about at the beginning of class, is making sure that all of your progress from this quarter hasn't stopped, and that you keep moving forward. And I'm so proud that you guys are doing that, and I thank you. Keep that up. Make sure you come to class prepared tomorrow, because we're done with the book basically by Wednesday. I don't know if you checked while we were reading, but there's not a heck of a lot left. And we just came to a major plot point that I won't ruin for 3rd period, but it's going to impact the rest of the book in quite a profound way. And that letter that you're writing for homework about that particular event, if you did finish it, remember that you are writing a persuasive article. We talked about this at the end of class. Or not an article, but a persuasive letter, which means that you have to have a claim, and you have to be able to convince somebody. Well, remember, the way we convince somebody is with proof. We're a prove-it society, always have been, always will be. If I'm going to believe you, if you're trying to convince me of something, if I'm going to believe you, you're going to need to provide some really good evidence and make some really good telling points if I'm going to believe you, or if I'm going to change the way I think, feel, or believe about something. So don't brush that off as like, oh, I can finish this in 5 minutes. Make sure you fill every line, and make sure it's carefully crafted to if I were General Parsons, side with you instead of somebody else. I'll see you guys tomorrow.